if language's primary function is to communicate, then how is it better? And I'm really genuinely would like to know, isn't it better that we have some common language? How do I communicate with the thousands of tribal people? I have no language to communicate with them, nor do they have any to communicate. So how do we resolve this? I mean, at one hand, we do want diversity. On the other, we do want a way of a common language.
Well, the Roman term, Latin term communicate has its root in the term community, and without that communication there is no sense of community at all. Or a community is what a community does is to communicate. To be a community is to communicate, that's definitely. But supposing I am under pressure to learn 5 languages in order to communicate with people who will learn only 2 languages. I mean, I am giving an imaginary example. Will that be a fair deal? And obviously, it won't be a fair deal, particularly when I have fewer means to study those 5 languages. In our country, we adopted 3 language formula for schools, and it was interpreted in a rigid way as the state's language, Hindi and English. But supposing we allowed this 3 language formula to whoever wants to study any 3 Indian languages and appear for the board examination, heavens are not going to fall. But this will allow the tribal children to study their own language up to the 10th standard or 12th standard. I mean, that is the argument we have taken up with the Human Resource Ministry. Allow that 3 language formula in a realistic way, rather than punishing those people for not having scripts during the colonial times. That is the point.
I would very much like to know what is the peace situation in Tejgarh, around the Dang area. How have people related to the fact that certain ashramization of certain cultures are taking place? How the Catholics or the Christians were being alienated or being pushed around? How on the streets during the riots you had so-called some people, elements brought in from the Dang area and made to do certain things? And what are the kind of feelings, the passion that goes along there? Would have given me a better sense of what you're talking about. Why is it that when we are discussing, we do have a limitation and we do pay obeisance to this constitution? Because this is the constitution which is unifying and saying everything is what is measured in this form. And only a definition of violence is being anti-constitutional. You see, these are some of the concepts that I find difficult in the way we ourselves address the issue, which is one kind of homogenization itself, an intellectual homogenization.
Since you mentioned Tejgarh, I respond very quickly, though perhaps Dr. Parasuraman should be a better person to respond to you. Tejgarh is the work at Tejgarh, Adivasi Academy, the Adivasi communities coming together there, and despite provocation from a fascist-like state there, keeping their cool, despite the provocation, the state was trying to, that particular state was trying to prove that there is presence of Naxalism in the state, because every chief minister likes to have Naxalites. You know, normal law can be suspended there. Still people have kept their cool there. And that's certainly a negotiation with modernity, with the rest of the country. So that is, I am deeply engaged in that experiment. At the beginning of the 19th century in Bengal, there was a big debate about modernity and tradition. And modernity was seen by the Bengal Renaissance in inverted commas as ability to get into knowledge through English or to get into English through translation of traditional knowledge. And we are stuck there. We do not know if we should go back to this country has still not learned to decide on this question, to go back to the old tradition or to go back to the West. India is neither fully Western nor fully traditional. It is not like some of the Middle Eastern countries. It is neither moving forward nor moving backward. It is caught in between. This question we are still not resolved, and I am happy we are not resolved, because we are essentially culturally bilingual, culturally multilingual. So, we can accept a traditional tradition, a modern tradition, a confused tradition, and be happy. Bombay can be like New York and also like Vadgaon or some such at the same time. That is a good thing. So, the tribal negotiation with modernity is not negotiation with the Marxist thought or Keynesian thought or the World Bank thought. The tribal negotiation with modernity is the possibility of remaining tribal and yet becoming citizens of the world.
I think it has more to do with diversity and opportunities. I think modernity is a process whereby people with opportunities have been able to move on to gather new ideas, new phenomenon. But I think the tribal people never had that kinds of opportunities, in the sense that it has always been an imposition. There is something which is different, something which is better than yours. Actually, I think that cannot be a way whereby the cultural change can happen. Actually, I think in the tribal context, it has always been an imposition of change that has been predominantly came from outside. I think so. The respect for little tradition, the respect for the local knowledge, respect for diversity, I think that is what is missing. So they have been asked to modernize on somebody else's terms. They are not being asked to modernize on their terms. Actually, see, so you give up your land, you give up your resources, and you get what? So there is nothing that level playing field that is available to a group of people. What is they are being asked is to give up, but give up to join what? So this has been the dilemma of tribal change in this country, whether it is with respect to their languages, whether it is with respect to their resources. Actually, so this is more in the form of adding a layer to their exclusion within the society, and I think that is where the real problem is.
With respect to the tribals and tribal languages, do we want to save their language or save their culture? I mean, their language is an integral part of their culture, but like when we will be negotiating with modernity, would you rather preserve their culture but perhaps spread it while using a more common language, or have them adapt their culture to in a modern way but still use their own language?
There are two ways. One is to preserve, and the other is not to disturb, not to send external disturbances. Sorry for this external hint. Not to create conditions by which it will get unnaturally disturbed. So I think preservation of a language is not like, say, pickle. You save something, you pickle it and save it for a while. The language cannot be stopped from changing. It changes, but by introducing external interferences, a language can definitely be killed. I will give an example. In Maharashtra, supposing the government decides that all English schools have to be closed, then Marathi children in Maharashtra are now speaking lovely English, good English. but they won't be able to speak English. English is the mother tongue of Maharashtra now. So, supposing the government says English schools have to be stopped, so there won't be any English spoken in Maharashtra. That is an external. So my plea is, let's not bother these languages. Let them be. When they want to, see, languages mix, merge, separate all the time. That's the beauty of language. So languages always borrow, they become rich. Languages sometimes lose some of their functionalities and then they start dying. This is natural. So the plea is, do nothing for the tribals. Let them be.
Let them be.
Let them be as citizens of India. Do nothing special for them. Then some of their languages will be conserved. Some of them are Mahabharata and Ramayana, epics, stories, novels, plays, songs. People continue, they will continue.
I just wanted both your views, kind of like, if you could say, what is the future? You know, we now have the, as everyone knows, you know, the internet is a language of its own in a way. And it's unstoppable, and perhaps it has done a lot to bring all kinds of people together and also apart. So, but it's here, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. So what's the future with languages? Is it that we have, is it ideal to have the whole world speak one language and then have lots of others that they have, you know, one common language for the world, so that some people don't have control over knowledge, and then of course have their own languages flourishing? What's the future?
The question you raised is a very important question, asked again and again in the past. Pegasus is imagined, I mean, is the symbol of imagination without reason. Equus is a horse again, which has a sense of the going ahead without any memory of what was, left behind. We have, of course, Ashwamedh, the horses were used, but in Haivadan, you have half horse, half man, waiting to be fully human. But in the end, it's not fully human, it's fully horse. In the wonderful, fascinating world of the cyberspace, this is what Kubernetes was, this, or Cybernetes was a man who could stay steady on tossing waves. Coleridge's father had such a painting in his house. The entire sea is tossing, but this is a steady ship, and then he wrote those lines, about this ship standing on, steady in the middle of a storm and something like that. I think in the wonderful and fascinating world of the cyberspace, we will have mastered the command, the ability to communicate with everybody in the world in hundreds of languages, but be confined physically to a real space which is filled with silence and no possibility of language. And it's not the future, it's our present today. It's an old question. Now we are not following Pegasus or Equus or the Haivadan horse, we are following the artificial intelligence, hoping that that will solve many of the problems that human intelligence has created. Perhaps all of us will become artificial intelligence and have no human language, but wonderful ability to communicate with the rest of the world.